Whoa. Do something funny.
What the fuck?
What?
Oh, hey, dude, what are you watching?
It's like TikTok from Ohio.
Oh, dude, that sounds awesome. Let me
It's
watch
the
it.
Ohio TikTok, Riz. We should watch Kais and Not. Oh, what the fuck?
Act 1, Peaceful Delusion.
The show begins with a pretty generic start. There are 3 characters we are introduced to who are walking down a road talking about the poor learning conditions at their school. The blue-haired one cracks a joke referencing Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which somehow segues into student union political propaganda within the first 10 seconds, ultimately setting the tone for the entire show.
I don't know, but all work and no play is really starting to cut into our after-school freedom. Whatever happened to education with breathing room?
The 3 then part ways with sullen faces as they all somberly accept their inability to do anything on their own to change the miserable status of their learning institutions. The scene follows one of these characters back to his house, and as he goes upstairs, this happens. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think this was gonna be a regular show? Think again, bitch! Welcome to Dokuro-chan. Say goodbye to your upper cranium! 1 minute and 44 seconds in, we've seen somebody naked, die, and be resurrected. Whereas some television shows struggle with a crisis of identity as to why any of the characters are doing what they're doing or why the show itself even exists. In this brief time span, we've already been introduced to the central premise of this entire show, along with most of the cast. And yet, amazingly, at the same time, the show has already made you subconsciously wonder,
what the fuck just happened? What was that?
why did they animate every single grain of gray matter flying out of his head when he got a 6-inch haircut from a giant spiked bat? There's no way this ever aired anywhere. It's basically hentai. And yeah, by today's standards, it pretty much is. I really doubt that something like this could ever air again. And that's part of what makes this show so endearing. The people who made this shit let their creative liberties run rampant, and as a result, it's an amazing show to rewatch. Although, I recommend preferably highly intoxicated and/or under the influence of several hallucinogenic substances. It's not just a show about crude sex jokes and violence, it's a goddamn work of art. A declaration of war against everything that the animation industry stood for at the time. The plot, however, has about as much depth as a shadow. Yet paradoxically, it's also confusing as hell, because the show barely directly explains anything. It's kinda like how in Metal Gear Solid 1, characters will give 20-minute long monologues about their beliefs and motivations, and then they'll tie it all into a plot element that centers around some guy from Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake, who you've never heard of before. And then right after they finish talking, you have to shoot a remote-controlled rocket at them and blow their fucking head off. Anyways, here's all you really need to know about the plot. Sakura Kusakabe is a 13-year-old junior high schooler who will, unfortunately, at some point in the future, discover the secret of immortality. On top of this, the Sakura of the future unfortunately spent an ungodly amount of time on 4chan's GIF board. And as a result of this, immortality was only discovered as a byproduct of him successfully preventing all females on the planet from physically aging past the age of 12 years old, effectively turning the entire planet into Epstein's world. As you could imagine, God is pretty pissed off at this whole turn of events. So, he forms an elite sect of assassins called Luluti that are fiercely dedicated to the eradication of Sakura. God then sends them all back in time to the year 2005 in order to essentially smother the son of a bitch in his crib. We never actually see God, he's only spoken about in conversations between other characters. Dokuro-chan is God's strongest fucking soldier, you fucking fuck, and so she is first in line to be assigned to murder Sakura. Dokuro-chan, however, falls in love with Sakura, but continues to kill him over and over again in order to prevent him from discovering the secret to immortality and ending up on Jeffrey Epstein's blacklist. Dokuro-chan's infamous weapon of choice is the giant black metal bat known as Excalibur, which she frequently uses to violently rip and tear Sakura to shreds before doing her equally infamous resurrection dance. Also, I guess it's kinda worth mentioning that the English voice actor for Dokuro-chan also voiced Faye Valentine in Cowboy Bebop.
And now you're leaving, just like that. Why do you have to go? Where are you going? What are you going to do? Just throw your life away like it was nothing?
Okay, fine. I guess I'll go take my bath with Sakura-chan.
Sakura's other notable relations include the likes of Sabato Mihashigo, another member of Luluti who is assigned to kill Sakura after Dokuro makes it apparent she has no intent to permanently kill Sakura. Sabato fails to kill Sakura in the second episode, and after that her funding is cut by heaven. She's forced to live in a cardboard box underneath a bridge for the rest of the show. Bad things always tend to gravitate towards Sabato, possibly even more so than Sakura. Whereas Sakura has Dokuro and Shizuki to keep him company, Sabato has nothing. She's just perpetually having the worst day at work ever. Her weapon of choice is literally just an electric shock baton she calls Durandal. Zanzu is, well, he's,
もしかしてしずきちゃんしずきちゃんキャーさくらくんじゃないざんすかこんなところで何してるざんすか
Yeah, next. Zakuro is Dokuro's younger sister and sent as a Hail Mary to kill Sakura at all costs. Despite her cool design, she is pretty much not even a character. I mean, all she really does is provide an arbitrary conflict so that Dokuro and Sakura are separated from each other and they have to admit their feelings for one another. She doesn't really do a whole lot more than that. In the second season, she just shows up living in Sakura's house, which doesn't make any sense at all because in the final episode of the first season, Zakuro was clearly still unwilling to allow Dokuro to meet Sakura again. Anyways, I'm probably just overthinking it. There's no way the animators, voice actors, or even the original author of the light novels thought nearly as hard about this as I did. It is, after all, a mere satire anime.
And of no practical use to anyone.
Zakuro's weapon of choice is a wet towel called Ekil Sax, which can split into multiple directions and bind victims once trapped in its attacks. The final notable character we see Sakura talk to is Shizuki, a childhood friend of Sakura's who is also his crush. Shizuki somehow is less of a character than Zakuro, which is impressive because the bar was already set so astronomically low. The only purpose Shizuki seems to serve is to play defense for Sakura and also to provide Sakura some sort of hope that he may be able to one day lead a normal life. Other than that, there's really not much else having to do with Shizuki to write home about. And that's the entire schizophrenic and disjointed plot. There's not a whole lot of dots to connect because it wasn't written to be the next Serial Experiments Lane. It was created to be a funny satire comedy anime from the early 2000s. It's fine that the plot is insignificant because the best areas where Dokuro-chan shines are in its attention to detail and commitment to very intricate and layered comedy routines. In the first episode, Dokuro-chan is announcing over the school loudspeaker where Sakura hides all of his dirty magazines, and everyone around him starts to laugh at him. He gets so pissed off that he turns into a fucking JoJo character. Runs straight out of the fucking library. 2 seconds later, his skull collides with Sabato and Dokuro-chan in the hallway, which is ripped up with his 3-frame drawing. Sakura then goes flying backwards like he stepped on a landmine in Metal Gear Solid 1. Sakura gets up and stares at Sabato's underwear before introducing himself as the animation detail on his face is very noticeably increased. It's all lovey-dovey like a typical rom-com slice of anime now. He hands her a handkerchief and the episode ends. And at the very start of the next episode, Sabito is fucking dead. She's fucking dead, guys! And now time went back for no reason, and her brain is exposed. Oh my fucking god, holy shit, holy fuck! Another time, during the scene where they're all in the movie theater, when Sabito returns after she gets her ass kicked in the first episode, she explains what has happened to her since then and forces a flashback onto Sakura and the viewer as she reveals she's been living in a shack underneath a bridge. However, we already saw Sabito like this in the first episode, because what Sabito is actually describing is the fucking ED. Yeah, they just played the ED in the episode. What other anime can you say did that, huh? Jujutsu Kaisen never did that. Demon Slayer never did that. But what really took even me by surprise is that there's yet another layer deeper to this. A barely noticeable leitmotif of the ED also plays alongside Sabito's monologue while she's recollecting this memory.
学校近くの橋の下に最近住み着いた不審人物ってサバトちゃんのことだったんだ。
One of my favorite jokes in the entire anime is when Sakura is first introduced, and Dokuro-chan is to fight her, but then she gets a phone call from Zanzu. Zanzu sees that Dokuro-chan is in danger, even though it's 2005. He jumps to the phone call to come... he jumps to the phone call to fucking come help Dokuro-chan. Oh my god, he's dead. He's not getting up after that one. And that's not even touching on the whole mysterious face incident. Keksi made an amazing video documenting that entire strange mystery far better than I ever could in this video. And it's perhaps the most strange thing in all of Dokuro-chan, which is definitely saying a lot. Definitely check out that video if you haven't already, it's a good one. And is deserving of Angry Joe's badass seal of approval. There's so many other examples of stuff like this dotted all throughout its short-lived runtime of a little over 2 hours. Every other frame seems to be filled with all sorts of odd references and inside jokes I'll never understand. And I love that. It just breathes so much soul. And that's why I think a lot of anime that release today are forgettable, boring, nothing burgers of shows. Because almost all of them stick to the same age-old, rehashed and repackaged method that's been served a billion different ways, but all still taste the exact same. I think a big reason we all remember Dokuro-chan is because it tried something different and unique, in comparison to the countless isekai clones that are released every year. Another huge reason that also possibly explains why we still remember this show is because around the mid-2000s, Dokuro-chan began to spread all over YouTube like a gangrenous wound. This anime managed to abuse every rule that the YouTube of today lives by. Terrifying the advertisers, mass amounts of gore, implicit sexual content. The only hope that the show had to remain on the platform was that it had gone to such extremes, nobody in the position of power to bring down the hammer could possibly believe it. The satire in Dokuro-chan was so on point that it is now quite literally timeless. Unlike most seasonal anime today that are about as memorable as overdosing on Rufinol,
Yo, ever heard of Jerkmate? It's fun, entertaining.
this show, even now, almost 2 decades later, has refused to fade away into the backgrounds of our minds. It's too cynical and angry to ever truly die. It vigorously returns to life after every one of its deaths, and demands to be remembered for all of its insanity, passion, and pride as an anime far ahead of its time. Each time it dies, its ironclad will to be is reinforced again by another tenfold. This is a show that is far too proud to be buckled down by mere nostalgia. If you've already seen this show, you should be living in constant fear of falling right back into it, like a fever or a daydream. Bokusatsu Tenshi Dokuro-chan will be remembered long after we're all gone and forgotten ourselves. Whether history will preserve the original message or twist it into some sort of sick bastardization remains to be seen. But either way, I'm pleased to know that it will continue to be presented to future generations, if for no other reason, in memory of how batshit insane everything was when our monkey minds first started to stare at pixels changing colors all day long. The primordial days of the internet, the bitter resentment of a show that was created by an industry that didn't even want it. The rapturous lamentations of the nonsensical world we find ourselves in. That's what I think this whole thing was about, and that's why I think you should recognize and respect its Sisyphean nature by going back to the original YouTube uploads and leaving your own mark on history, because if you don't, who will? But I don't know, even after saying all that, I just can't shake the feeling as though there's something going on in this plot that I've missed. I refuse to believe this entire show was just one giant goddamn shitpost. Would the presence of shitposters account for all of these long, introspective philosophical scenes? No, this isn't the work of your normal God-fearing troll animation team. It's too savage. There has to be something in this 2.5 hour long bad acid trip that paints a bigger picture. I just have to find the loose bricks in this wall, those scenes that stick out and give even a little bit more context to what's actually going on in the overarching story. Sabato's weapon of choice is her iconic shock baton named Durandal. Durandal is a legendary claymore which was wielded by the equally legendary paladin Roland. He was an officer of Charlemagne in epic French fucking literature. A Kelsex is the name of Sakura's towel and it means... Wait, what the fuck does a Kelsex mean? Dokuro's name means skull. Apparently, according to Kimuk from Hinativ.com, he wrote this in Russian, by the way, so this could be a little bit rough of a translation, but Zanzu's name is an old dialect version of a polite way to end a sentence in Japanese that was used in the Red Light Street district. Zakuro's name means pomegranate. Hey, you know, now that I think about it, what does Lulutsi mean either? Excalibur seems to be a
Seriously, does anybody know what the
it is a combination of spelled katakana.
It just shows you women's clothing, which could either be referring to the Jewish holiday or meeting of witches.
Why did the Halos stop them from shitting themselves, huh? That's the kind of shit I want to know. There was every reason to believe that from the very beginning, I was just chasing after shadows. Had I truly been seeking a false hope all along? Were these all just the result of schizophrenic delusions whilst in the depths of a psychotic episode, making a review about an anime from fucking 15 years ago?
Terrible gibberish. Splintered memories looming up out of the time fog. Just press play.
Matsunaga?
Dokuro-chan, I was wondering if I could ask you a question. What is that ring hovering above your head?
Madness. It made no sense at all. I desperately needed the facts.
Hey, you guys! Oh no! Just dodgeball! This is an aggressive game played to the finish with the basketball knocking out all the opposing players! Stop! You're murdering everyone with that heavy ball! Listen to me! You gotta stop this game! Why do you think you're the... I knew it! My whole body's becoming really sensitive!
Are you okay?
No, I'm not!
If I don't sell all these french fries, then I won't ever be able to go home!
Now wait just a minute, sir! Aoki is the one that sits at this desk! What? But she was there just a minute ago. Now even her books are gone. Where did she go? Shizuki, don't come any closer!
Get ready, here it comes!
Ah! You guys, what happened to Aoki? She was here just a second ago, right? This is weird! Did you see Matsunaga turn into a monkey? Come on, people, open your eyes! She's an angel! Can't you be a little more alarmed?
Wait, man! Go back a little bit!
She's an angel! Can't you be a little more alarmed?
That's a strange way of calling somebody dangerous. Why would he phrase it like that? Out of all the labels he could have slapped onto her here, the word angel does not come off as a title that strikes fear into the hearts of the masses. If an angel descended down to earth, would that not be cause for celebration? From his description of Dokuro-chan, it almost seems like the world Sakura lives in has seen angels before. And not only that, but judging by his phrasing, angels are considered dangerous to people. Yeah, I think I'm starting to piece it all together. I think for the very first time I finally have an idea of what is going on in this fever dream of a plot. There's a bunch of other weird shit going on in this scene as well. The teacher asks what is floating above Dokuro-chan's head, but he and everyone else in the room are not at all worried about the godlike being that had already turned one of them into a monkey and erased another one of them from existence? What could it mean? In hindsight, Sakura seems like the only sane one here when he rightfully points out this abnormal group behavior. A classmate suddenly turning into a monkey? The appearance of an angel would surprise most people, but Everyone in this room is totally unfazed. Why is nobody in this room acting like they should be? It was played off as a gag, but was it really just a gag? That scene where the girl disappeared seemed too existentially terrifying to be written off as just a joke. This isn't the only time Dokuro is shown to hurt other people who get in the way between her and Sakura. In fact, it happens quite frequently throughout the show. I guess the question I'm really asking is, just how much control does Dokuro really have? Before we can answer that, we have to figure out why Dokuro in particular was chosen to execute Sakura. In fact, Dokuro being chosen out of all the other angels to do this mission in specific is pretty odd in of itself. Someone like Sakura would have been able to splay the gore of his profane form across the stars. Even Sabato would most likely have been able to kill Sakura if Dokuro hadn't been interfering. At this point, we have to ask, is it really a coincidence that Dokuro was assigned to do this job? Some theorize that God himself made Dokuro for this exact task, because simply killing Sakura would not be nearly enough to atone for what he did. Others theorize that Dokuro was ordered to do this because God believed that he could prevent Sakura from inventing immortality by sicking a rabid Dokuro onto him. There's just too much open to interpretation to ever be able to nail down a definitive answer with anything in this godforsaken show. The final episode of the last season had Sakura searching to presumably finally kill Sakura. Yet, in the very first episode of the second season, she's inexplicably living with him. Who are all these additional animal characters we've never seen before that Dokuro presumably transformed? Why is Heaven now content with Dokuro allowing Sakura to live? This is all just too strange to ignore. You know what? It may be a long shot, but maybe skimming through the season 1 finale will provide us with some much needed answers to these questions. Around the 7-minute mark of episode 7, Sakura and Dokuro begin using a Ouija board with a crowd watching them. Dokuro attempts to forcibly make Sakura admit in front of everyone in his class that he likes her with the Ouija board, but Sakura refuses to allow Dokuro to spell the last particle in her name, and the combined pressure of the two's opposing wills ends up crushing the entire table. This whole scene is an allusion to the hedgehog's dilemma, in which Sakura is avoiding intimacy despite craving it because the closer he gets to Dokuro, the more it hurts. Sakura is now trying to hide something everyone in the room half paying attention already knows. Dokuro is infuriated by his refusal to admit his feelings, and immediately tries to annihilate him with Excalibur. This is Sakuro's first introduction, in which she saves Sakura from another death at the hands of Dokuro. She's here to take back Dokuro because she's failed in her mission to slay Sakura, and has by extension betrayed Heaven. One thing I think that you should note is that in Dante's Inferno, treachery is the most egregious and serious sin one could commit, owing to God looking down on betrayers of special relationships as the worst sinners. Treacherous sinners are frozen in a lake of ice from the neck down, unable to look in any direction besides face down. It's unknown if Dokuro would actually face this punishment, as she did betray a covenant with God. The two duke it out, and Dokuro seemingly has no regard for any of the bystanders of this fight, as she almost kills a few of them. Dokuro asks what will become of Sakura after she leaves, and Sakura just coldly remarks that he will be assassinated once her orders are given to her.
Dokuro-chan! Dokuro-chan, ここから逃げたんだ。必ず見つけ出します。
The final scene I want to talk about in episode 7 is when Shizuki and Sakura meet in the empty classroom. Shizuki asks why Sakura even cares about somebody as horrible as Dokuro, to which Sakura accidentally lets loose a Freudian slip.
仕方ないじゃない。ドクロちゃん、未来の世界に帰らなきゃいけないんでしょ？
だけどこのままだと多分二度とドクロちゃんに会えなくなっちゃうんだよ。
Shizuki is clearly devastated by how her childhood crush has been seduced by something she has no chance of ever competing with. And so, she swallows the bitter pill and accepts the fact that Sakura has chosen Dokuro over her.
早く行ったら？
しずきちゃん。
Episode 8 starts off with Sakura entering his room with none of the lights on while the sun is setting. It's a genuinely beautiful aesthetic and reminds me of some of the scenes from Lane and Evangelion. Sakura already knows Dokuro is hiding in his room, and this is where we see a side of Dokuro we see once and never again.
ただいま、ドクロちゃん。僕ね、好き。何が？
The high-octane and chaotic vibe she's known for has been reduced to a feeble and anxious whimpering. Even her attempts to normalize the conversation fail, as Sakura is presumably unable to think about anything else besides how Dokuro is about to disappear from his life forever. Zakuro breaks through Sakura's window and instantly binds both Dokuro and himself. Zakuro demands Sakura tell her that he wants Dokuro to disappear, but he is seemingly unable to do this. Sakura asks what will happen to Dokuro once she goes back, and Zakuro gives a vague and ominous answer. She also reveals something very important. Sakura's memories of Dokuro will vanish along with her. Sakura finally stands his ground and reveals his true feelings about Dokuro.
ドクロちゃん、もっと一緒に僕と遊ぼう。
But it was all for nothing. Sakura was unaffected by his heartfelt speech, and so the two angels disappear, leaving Sakura alone in his dark room. The sun is set, and so has Sakura's chance at happiness, slipping right through his fingers.
さくらくん、さくらくん、さくらくん、ソフトクリームが垂れてる。
Shizuki calls Sakura's name 2 times, but it's not until the third that he finally stops staring off into space. This is what he wanted all along, just him and Shizuki alone together finally.
巨峰も美味しいね。今度は私もさくらくんと同じやつにしよっと。悩み事でもあるの？
いや、特に悩みとかはないんだけど。
でも最近いつもぼーっとしてる。
うまく言えないんだけど、こうやってここにいるでしょ？
さくらくんと私が？
うん。で、ここでこんなに平和で穏やかな今が、なんというか、まるで夢のような感じで。いや、だからね、こうしてこんなところで何にも起こらず安全にソフトクリーム食べていられることが、なんていうか、信じられないんだよね。
Sakura's speech right here has layered meanings. Essentially what he's saying is that all the scenery around him, eating ice cream with his crush on a beautiful day, it all doesn't feel real, and not in a good way. When he says that this all feels like a dream, he's admitting to Shizuki that she and him don't feel like a real couple. It all feels so artificial to him. It's only now that he's finally achieved what he wanted that he can truly appreciate just how unfulfilling and empty it has all become to him. Shizuki is able to easily see through his strange poetic description of the situation, but even more so, she can see he's now a broken man without any drive to fuel him. Sakura has gone hollow, and Shizuki's doing a good job of hiding how much this is bothering her. However, it's not easy to carry a conversation by yourself, and so as a result she's unwilling to cooperate with him in this veneer of fake normalcy. She ends up abruptly leaving Sakura. She looks back at Sakura and sees he's returned back to his position of staring off into space again, and a brief pained expression is visible as she turns and walks away.
"ちゃんとしなきゃ。
すいません、今日たまたまお金はジャンプしても小銭の音はしません。待ってくださいです。カツアゲとは違うんですよ。
サバトちゃん。
This exchange between Sabato and Sakura is extremely important for a few reasons, but mainly because it's really fucking weird. For some reason, this is the only time Sabato talks like a Mario 64 character, and she is very vague when talking about why she's helping Sakura. Apparently, something very bad is going on in the future world, but what that may be is anyone's guess. And then she says an angry angel has caused things to get out of hand, which I guess is probably referring to Dokuro after she was returned to the the future. And, as if things weren't already confusing enough, Sabato tells Sakura that Dokuro is inexplicably waiting for him at his house now, even though that should be impossible from what we already heard from Zakuro. The world had been visited by angels in the past, but they were only ever violent, depraved killers sent by heaven to execute people who would create world-ending calamities such as Sakura. This is why people are shown on multiple occasions to have a basic understanding of what angels are and why they are dangerous. It is more likely than not Dokuro was created by God with the sole purpose of assassinating Sakura before he could create Epstein's world. He posed so much of a threat that an entire angel was created from scratch with the sole objective of killing him, which is why she is so much more violent than any of the other angel assassins. She's more of a weapon than an angel. As fate would have it, the weapon fell in love with the thing it was designed to kill. Also, the resurrection torture was probably not part of God's plan, seeing as God saw this as an act of treachery against him. Sabato is then assigned to do what Dokuro could not, but she fails because she is too inept. Dokuro comes to believe that by repeatedly killing Sakura and reviving him over and over, he will never create Epstein's world because her insanity will always keep him preoccupied. This is why she never wants him to study, because the smarter he gets, the closer humanity gets to immortality. She also makes sure that no one in Sakura's immediate circle recognizes the true danger of her godlike powers by controlling the memories and perceptions of reality, although she is shown to accidentally erase too much at times, such as the brain's ability to rationalize common sense and people's entire existences. Sabato has her funding cut due to her failure, and Zanzu begins to assist Dokuro in protecting Sakura from the wrath of God. Zakuro then shows up and is tasked with taking Dokuro into custody for her treachery against God. Now, this is the part where things will have to get a bit speculative. Dokuro was arrested and sent back to the future, but somehow she managed to return to the past after we already saw her taken into custody to the future. If we put together all of the pieces we have here, we start to paint a pretty eerie picture. Dokuro is a violent, vicarious, borderline demonic entity that can manipulate the memories of humans, erase people from existence, bring back people from the dead, transform people into animals, and inflict pain without even a shred of remorse. I think the fights we saw between her and Zakuro were not even close to the true strength Dokuro could have employed. Dokuro was likely holding back in order to either make Sakura feel bad for her, or because she didn't want Sakura getting hurt by Zakuro. Likely because when Sakura is killed by something or someone other than Dokuro, she can't bring him back. When Dokuro was brought in front of Heaven's tribunal, she probably began to kill everyone around her. Perhaps she even slayed God himself. It's not very clear, but Dokuro at least inflicted enough damage unto Heaven that they deemed Sakura less of a problem than incurring any further wrath from Dokuro. The second season takes place after the season 1 finale, and Dokuro's subsequent victory over Heaven. This means that Dokuro likely altered the memories of every single character in the show, because nobody brings up the mission to kill Sakura even a single time in all of the second season. If that's the case, then how do we know any of the second season is even real? It's quite possible that it's all just a giant delusion or a fabricated memory Sakura was given by Dokuro after the first season. And if that's the case, just what is happening in reality? The most detrimental consequence of Dokuro's selfishness is that nothing has fundamentally changed to prevent Sakura from inventing immortality. And if Heaven has given up on killing Sakura, then it's only a matter of time before humanity loses its ability to die.